Hey Warrior fans, it's Scott again, and this is another edition of DUBS Playoff Watch, and I thank you for joining me. Obviously, all Warrior fans, and maybe a handful of you are DUBS Playoff Watch fans. You know who you are. Anyway, Warriors took care of business, have been taking care of business. Warriors have won 4 in a row. So let's get right to the standings so we can talk about the remaining games left in the season and what's happening around the league. We'll get right to that. All right. As you can see, the Warriors are hanging on to that 8th spot by half a game over the Grizzlies. And the only reason they are still in that 8th spot because they, as I mentioned, they've won 4 in a row because the Grizzlies have won 3 in a row. So the Warriors have had to battle, which they have done, and they are taking care of business for sure in order just to remain half a game ahead of the Grizzlies. And, we're going to take a look at some highlights here shortly. Real quick, though, let's Lakers, Mavericks, and the Trailblazers. So the Blazers have taken over the 5th spot, even though they are tied with the Mavericks at the moment. And the Lakers are trailing them by a game because of that close victory over the Knicks last night. Now, it's not mathematically impossible, as the Warriors, they only have 2 games remaining, and they are trailing the Lakers for that 7th spot. There's not a huge advantage. Both the 7th and 8th are going to be in the play-in game. So 6th spot is out of the question with 3.5. Even if the Lakers were to lose their remaining 3 games and the Warriors caught them, they'd still likely end up playing each other in the 7th, 8th, unless the Grizzlies have something to say about it as a result of the Warriors possibly losing 2 or 3 of their games. So let's hope that that is not the case. So I wanted to, as you can see there, also take a quick look at the Pelicans and the Kings. So the Kings, because they have one of the best records over the last 10 games in the NBA, they are 7-3, still playing strong. They caught the Pelicans and tied them, which means that they are only, again, 2.5 games behind the Spurs. So is it conceivable? Yes, it's conceivable, mathematically possible for the Kings, who have 3 games remaining. The Grizzlies, and then again the Grizzlies on Friday, and then they play the Jazz on Sunday. I'm not sure who will be on the roster, in the lineup, I should say, on Sunday for the Jazz, depending on whether they have that first spot sealed up or not. Mitchell has been out due to injury. I understand he may be back this week for one of their games, but who knows? Depends on whether or not they need him. They don't want to risk further injury and have him miss out on the first round or what have you. That's certainly not something they want to risk. And you look at the Spurs. The Spurs have 4 games remaining. Tonight against the Nets, and then they play the Knicks tomorrow, and then Saturday and Sunday they have back-to-back games against the Suns. The Spurs definitely have the most difficult schedule remaining for the end of the season. There is no question about that. So it's conceivable that they could lose 3 of these 4 or all 4 games? Absolutely. Is it conceivable the Kings could win all 3 of their remaining games? The way they have been playing over the last 2 to 3 weeks, absolutely. There is no question that this is a possibility, and I would say it is more than a remote possibility. But I would still say that it is unlikely, but hey, if I'm a Kings fan and I am a partial Kings fan when I'm not a Warriors fan, I certainly am going to be rooting for the Kings and rooting against the Spurs. There's no question about that. So, again, that makes that all the more exciting. And what else we've got going on in the NBA throughout, including the East, is exciting as well. Let's just talk about tonight's games and tomorrow's games. Let's go over that real quick. Okay, so while I talk about tonight's games and tomorrow's games around the NBA, and really the key games that are going to determine some of the playoff positions still that are up in the air and are juggled on a daily basis. Anyway, I'm going to show you some end of game highlights from the Warriors versus the Jazz first, and then also just a fantastic ending to the game against the Suns as well. All right, so enjoy those as I kind of talk through at least the games that again will take place tonight and tomorrow. I am going to, as promised, go through the games tonight and tomorrow, but I did want to talk through this sequence on this highlight real quick. I can't help myself. Anyway, Clarkson was incredibly hot, as you all know, and so he just hit that three, put the Jazz up by 2. Warriors are trying to come back on their possession, and you can see what happens here. Unfortunately, Steph throws a turnover there as he was trying to create. Now watch the defense step up, though. Wiggins has been huge. The defense is really going to try and put the clamps down on Clarkson at this point. Steph comes up to help. Wiggins takes over again, and Clarkson takes a very ill-advised, difficult shot. Warriors are going to push it back here. Now, Draymond with the screen doing everything, sets Steph up perfectly. Unfortunately, missed it, but Looney doing what Looney does constantly, follows it, kicks it back out to Draymond, who sets up Steph perfectly for that shot. And the Warriors go back into the lead. Tremendous. All right, so please enjoy the rest of the highlights here. This is from the end of the Jazz game. And this is the replay of that Draymond bounce pass to Steph to set up that three. And you can take a look at the next defensive possessions for the Warriors. Just did a incredible job of preventing Clarkson from scoring any more key buckets at that point. And then you'll see the end of the Suns-Warriors game as well. All right. So, having said that, key games today. Again, this includes some of the Eastern squads as well. So the Wizards currently in 10th spot. Yeah, I'm not getting started on the Wizards today. But back in 10th, Pacers up by a game in 9th. They play the Hawks. The Wizards play the Hawks. Hawks are in 5th, but tied with the Heat and the Knicks for 4th place. So that is going to come down to maybe the final game of the season as well. Spurs, as we talked about, 10th. They're 2.5 ahead of the Pelicans and the Kings, who are now tied for the 11th. They play the Nets tonight. Let's go Brooklyn. And by the way, Harden, rumor has it, Harden may make a comeback. His first game back may be this evening. I hope so. All right, Mavs. They are 6th, but tied with the Blazers, also shooting for that 5th spot versus the Pelicans. So the Mavs play the Pelicans. Blazers versus the Jazz. Lakers play the Rockets. Listen to AD after a good game last night. Looks like it may have a slight groin pull. May not play. It sounds like it may be a game time decision. They are 7th and one behind the Mavs and the Blazers, as we spoke about earlier. Tomorrow, the Bucks versus the Pacers. And the Pacers are tied with the Hornets for the A spot now. And again, one game ahead of the Wizards. And see, the Clips play the Hornets. So again, that'll be interesting to see what happens with the Hornets and the Pacers fighting for that spot. Magic versus Hawks. Again, the Hawks most interesting here. Sixers versus the Heat for the same reason. Very interesting. Now the Spurs and the Knicks for all the reasons we talked about earlier. The Nuggets play the Timberwolves. And I'm bringing this one up because the Timberwolves, we want the Timberwolves to lose their remaining games. They have been playing well recently. And the Warriors own the Timberwolves first round draft spot. So we want we want the Wolves to lose their remaining games, seeing how that may or may not make a difference, but they need to maintain the 5th or 6th spot in terms of the worst record in the league in order for the Dubs to have a shot at either the top 5, top 6 draft picks. And it's looking likely, based on percentages, that the Warriors may end up somewhere between the 6th and the 9th spots, based on the fact that Timberwolves are playing very well at the end of the season. So they no longer look like they are going to be the 5th or 6th worst team in the NBA. Then we have the Grizzlies versus the Kings. And we've already talked about that. And that's going to be very interesting. And then the Blazers versus the Suns. So, tough game for the Blazers there. Anyway, that is tonight's games along with tomorrow night's games. So, all these games mean something to these teams and to both the West and the East. And this is very exciting, coming down to the last 3 to 4 games for all of these teams. All right. So let's hear from Draymond following the win against the Jazz. This was, of course, during the post-game press conference.
Jordan Poole. So, I mean, just how important is it, or big is it for you guys to get contributions scoring-wise from guys not named Steph Curry, like Jordan Poole?
Very important. I think he finished with 20 tonight. Which is great. I always talk to Jordan about being confident when you open, take them shots. Confident kid, as I've spoke plenty of times, works his ass off. So it's always great to see him have these moments and all the work that he put in paying off. It's definitely not by accident. Kid works his ass off, so he deserves to have these moments. And obviously we can use them.
Jeremiah, Steve said that this is one of your best seasons of your career. We all know how last season went, and I guess to double down on what Monty asked, what is it about stakes that gets you going? What is it about these types of moments that get you going?
I guess some people just wired a little differently. For me, I love to play in games that matter. When the stakes are higher, it gets me going. It's kind of give you that extra push. It makes you look past the fatigue. It makes you look past the times when stuff aren't going great out there. Because the bigger picture is this game matters. And so I don't know, man. I've always been that kid. Growing up, and obviously now becoming a man. When it matters, I just enjoy it a little more, and it's just give you that extra boost. Well, at least that's what it does for me.
Would you agree that this is one of your best seasons in your career?
I think I'm having a really good year. Is it the best in my career? know, so yeah, I mean, could be, but overall, I think I'm having a pretty good year.
At what point during the game did you learn that Memphis had beaten New Orleans? Did that give you guys a little bit of that extra push, or do you not really look at what the other teams are doing until afterwards?
I didn't know during the game. I didn't know till after the game. Our focus is on us. You know, we can't focus on another team losing to somebody else. At the end of the day, we take care of business these last 3 games, and we can control where we end up as far as this play-in tournament goes. So it's really unnecessary to worry about another team. Somebody, you know, throw the dogs a bone, then great, we'll take it. But it's nothing to really look at and see if they lost. Because at the end of the day, if they lost tonight and they won the rest, we still need to beat them when we play them. So I think it don't really matter. So I did not know till way after.
That being said, are you looking up at all at who might be there at 7?
I think as a basketball fan, it's exciting. You know, just to kind of see that play out. What is it, Dallas, Portland, and LA? Just kind of seeing how that plays out. I think that's fun to watch. It's exciting. So from that standpoint, yes. I'd also like to know what city I'm going to whenever we do play. So that's cool.
A fan of the play-in tournament as we get closer, or no?
No, I don't give a damn about the play-in tournament. I care about the game. We want to win the game, you know, compete in the playoffs. But I don't give a damn about this play-in tournament. It is what it is.
Dre, Mark has clutch points. Steve said earlier in his mind that this year you're the defensive player of the year. When you look across and you see Rudy Gobert, he's obviously one of the candidates. Is the defensive player of the year award almost just as controversial as winning the MVP?
I think it's very controversial. I think, you know, it's not always. It doesn't always go to the most impactful player on defense, you know. So I take that back. It's not very controversial because no one in the world gives a damn about defense. So it doesn't create as much controversy because no one cares about defense, as if it doesn't win games and championships. But it's also a little tougher to evaluate. You know, because on offense, you evaluate by assists, you evaluate by points. At times, you know, defense is evaluated by blocks and steals, but that doesn't necessarily tell the story. Some of the worst defenders in NBA history has led the league in steals, or been right up there in that category of, you know, top 3. Steph just raised his hand. I don't think Steph's one of the worst defenders in NBA history, and especially not this year, blocking shit up. But you know, you can get steals, you can get blocks, you can do those things. And I know people will try to make this about Rudy Gobert. Feel free to make it about Rudy if you want. It's not, but whatever. But you can get steals, you can get blocks, and that cannot tell the story. You know, so it doesn't quite go hand in hand. As you can get assists and you can get points, and it doesn't tell the story. You know, so I forgot what your question was and what the hell I was talking about, but whatever I just said, I hope it answered your question.
All right, I thought it might be fun for all you Lakers and maybe even Blazers and maybe even Mavs fans to take a look at what they have remaining, since they are in a battle, to say the least, for playoff positions. Let's just look at the remaining games. The Lakers, so they have the Rockets today, and then they play the Pacers on Saturday, and then they end the season on Sunday playing the Pelicans. So it looks favorable for them. The Blazers, they play the Jazz today, then they play the Suns tomorrow, and then they play the Nuggets on Sunday. So that looks like a tough schedule if you ask me. The Mavericks play the Pelicans today. They play the Raptors Friday, and they play the Timberwolves on Sunday. Timberwolves, again, have been playing hard here the last 2 to 3 weeks. Actually, the last 4 weeks. So who knows what kind of mood they are going to be in on the final game of the season. They may not be a pushover again, or maybe at that point it's going to be over, and we'll see what happens. But definitely the Mavs have the most favorable remaining games of any of those 3 teams. But for the Warriors' sake, we're focusing on the Grizzlies, getting back to that. So tomorrow and then Friday. Tomorrow the Grizzlies play the Kings. Kings fans. And again, when I'm not a Warriors fan, I am a Kings fan. So definitely be rooting for the Kings tomorrow against the Grizzlies. And definitely will be rooting for the Kings again on Friday against the Grizzlies. And we'll be rooting for the Warriors on Friday. Equally as hard, to say the least. So that's going to do it for Dubs Playoff Watch today. Appreciate all of you for joining and tuning in to take a look at this very informative entertainment show. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, you stay healthy and stay safe out there. And let's go Warriors. Hey, and today, and for the remaining part of the season, let's go Kings also. Let's do it. Thanks, guys.